Welcome. This is our last fellowship live, so thank you for attending. We've got a great session for you. And
And hey everyone, we're excited to be here, and I'm super excited to share a conversation with David at Code Black. So
Let's go.
let's do it. I wanted to kind of get the conversation started. So we're going to be talking about the multiplier effect of skilled volunteers, how it can increase nonprofit capacity, how it can also lead to the talent pipeline within corporate partners and build relationships, build community, ecosystems. There's just all these different pieces. And at Apparo, we, as I mentioned earlier, we are a capacity building nonprofit, and we're able to deliver a lot of our services using mostly skilled volunteer. Those volunteers extend our knowledge as a staff. We provide free technology, consulting, advice, resources. We also do project implementation, a lot of cohort work around cyber and AI for nonprofit staff. And a lot of those nonprofits, their clients are students, they're upskilling, doing a lot of workforce development, upskilling their students. We're also starting to work with universities. So just pulling together that whole ecosystem. So David, I would love to hear from you. Tell us a little bit about Code Black and your organization, and how do you use volunteers to help upskill your students?
Okay. Stephanie, I first want to say that what caught me off guard, I'm gonna answer your question, but what catch me off guard is when you say the skill volunteers and how you explain how you all are using them. My mind instantly went to traditional volunteers. So, you know, how volunteers just come in and kind of help pack stuff and pat you on the back and things like that. But the more you begin to explain, I'm like, you know what? That's right. That I didn't even think of it like that, you know. So, but as far as for Code Black, what we're doing, we are a workforce development program, and our goal is to really increase technology, not just technology, but empower, equip, and propel the students that we work with in our community to use technology to advance and to continue to better themselves. And so the way that we use our volunteers, or I have volunteers, is I use them for the type of volunteers that I have is I have instructors. So I have senior professionals that come in and they teach our classes. And I also have speakers. So a lot of the speakers that I get, so when I'm had the opportunity to meet the CIOs or VPs, they're excited about what we're doing and they're interested. So what they do is I'll say, hey, we need some speakers for this particular topic. They send over, you know, who they deem to be very qualified individuals to come and speak, but they also are very mindful about the demographics that would people that we work with. So they're very open to that. And when the volunteers do come in and they teach or they talk, it doesn't lead to just this is just a one-time thing. I've had volunteers come, you know, they come back and like, hey, can we help finish building out your curriculum? Like, sure, let's go. Let's finish building this curriculum out. So and not, you know, just doing that and how they've helped us out in that way. They've also opened up other doors for us for funding. So because of how they came in and supported us, you know, they say, you know what, you need to look at this person. You need to go talk to this company. And I would have never known anything about them. So, I mean, I utilize my volunteers for a gamut of things, like you're saying, but I'm most definitely trying to make it work.
So what challenges do you see around having volunteers come in to help build your curriculum, or even just the training side of it? Is there consistency there?
Ooh, I will tell you, um, the challenges, yes, I most definitely, well, the consistency has been there. You know, so I do have them, you know, one is the communication. So we're always in communication. They do show up when they say they're going to show up. Let's see, the challenges that I've had. I would say I've had some volunteers come in and they wanted to tell me how I need to do my program, tell me how I should be teaching my program, and them not really understanding, there's a format as to how work with the students that I have and I work with the community. So sometimes they want to come in with a hammer and I have to tell them you can't do that. But other than that, that's more of a challenge. That's been a challenge um, for the most part. How about yourself? What are some challenges that you've had?
We are very fortunate. We have had circumstances, I think, where if we're doing, um, say, a 3-month project with a nonprofit, we can sometimes get a team that's not as engaged. And we do
Mm,
put time commitment requirements. We share all of that up front. We need an hour per week for, say, 3 months. But sometimes teams, they just get busy. They've got their day-to-day job. And I think that's probably been our biggest challenge is, which it doesn't happen very often.
hmm
And I love that question because it kind of leads me into our sweet sauce at Apparo is we are very intentional about doing volunteer training, vetting the volunteers. And a lot of them are coming from our corporate partners that are also funders for us. And our sweet sauce is that Apparo stays in the middle and we facilitate the relationship between the nonprofit and the corporate partner. So if things go awry, we can talk to the nonprofit and then talk to the corporate partner to bring us back online. And it helps also with like project scope creep going outside of
hmm
projects. So we're managing the scheduling and just keeping the things running. So we're there. And I think a lot of like, if you think about traditional volunteers, when they come to volunteer, they kind of just step away after they do whatever they came to do to help the
hmm
nonprofit.
hmm
Um, but ours stay engaged after. So, and it goes back to maybe one of the things, if we have time later, is getting into just building these relationships. And especially,
hmm
another question I have for you is around how do you attract partners and your volunteers? Like, what does that process look like?
How do I track my partners or the
Yeah,
volunteers?
yeah.
Ooh, that's a
Like, do you
tough
do
question.
marketing? Are you out there on social media? Or
I do social media, and you said, okay, well, let me back up. You said, how do I attract, or how do I track them?
how do you build relationships with your partners
Okay,
to find
okay.
volunteers and to find funding too? Because it kind of goes together.
hmm Well, for me, I would say that the way that I find my volunteers is I'm always in the community. In my past, I have maybe have 30 years of experience with social work. So I have a vast knowledge or extent of individuals and leaders in the community. And so when I go out to community events or other things like that, everybody knows, kind of pretty much knows who I am and what I do. And so they always introduce me to somebody else. But I'm also very intentional about the type of volunteers or the type of partners that I'm looking for. I'm not going to say like I'm a gatekeeper, but I'm very mindful, like I said, about the community that we are serving. And I don't want people to come in and say, hey, just you think you got the answer, but you really don't understand because you're not a part of the community. And so, in saying that, that's what helps me to really home in on, like I said, when I'm seeking or I'm looking for different types of volunteers or different type of partnerships. Um, just because there's a lot of corporate companies around here does not mean half of those corporate companies is meant for us or they could work with us.
Right.
We've been kind of focusing on like churches or some of the nonprofits, some shelters, those types of partnerships as well, just to build that relationship. And the reason why that for me is important is because it's part of our holistic approach. If we can't help take care of the person, then it doesn't matter how much money you throw at him. It's the problem still may not always be resolved. So that's kind of how my approach is.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, David. And as I'm thinking here, just to kind of tag on to volunteers, do you, the volunteers that you do have that help you out with your capacity, do you do any metrics, like do surveys after and collect metrics, like how many hours they spent building curriculum or delivering trainings to your students, things like that?
Mhm. You know, I would tell you that this is, I'll say, I'll answer your question like this. So one of the volunteers that we have, they have a company, and the company is called Business Analytics. So all they do is constantly data. They do surveys, they know how to put all that stuff together. And when they started volunteering and working with us, they really helped us to identify the right type of questions to ask to get the response that we need. So it's from not just from our students, but even from like I said, our partnerships and our volunteers. And so with that data, it has really helped me to communicate better to the community, but also even to other partners about the type of need, what is it that we need? Why do we need it? Where do we need it at? So that has really helped, but still learning I'm still learning how to use a lot of the platforms to be able to understand, like, what are they saying, the numbers, but having their experience and helping me build that out, we can always come back and say, okay, like right now, I'm in a place where I need to decide if I need a pivot. I do need a pivot, but how do I pivot? Based off of what I'm seeing from my volunteers and what they're saying, and also in conjunction to what students are seeing and saying, I know that there has to be a pivot, and I got to figure out how to pivot. And so I use that information to kind of help me decide on which direction I want to go.
Okay, that's
So,
awesome. I was just thinking about this way I used AI recently. Um, we did a nonprofit survey for a lot of our nonprofit clients, leaders, and we have all this raw data. And I mean, it would take hours and hours to get through all this data. So we uploaded it into Copilot, and it was just absolutely amazing what came back. All the trends and the data points that we can now use to share with the community and our funders and partners. So a little plug for AI there. But yeah, for years, we do surveys after each of our engagements, whether it's a cohort and we've had a volunteer mentor or a full out project, a technology assessment plan, cyber assessments. And we've built up all of these wonderful numbers that we're able to take to a corporate partner and say, here, volunteers, 93% of volunteers want to come back and do this again because they're sharing their experience with nonprofits and the
mhm,
community. And it gets them to step out of their day to day to
mhm,
give back. And they just get so much satisfaction out of it that we have just built up this huge pipeline because of that.
mhm,
And it's just, going back to that multiplier effect.
mhm.
Um, not sure where we are on that time, but just thinking about you're doing workforce development and
Mhm.
are you using volunteers, and excuse me if you mentioned this earlier, but to mentor any of your students and kind of help guide them to um, jobs and, types of jobs that are out there?
I am. And that part right there is a little challenging. We do have some mentors, but once again, those volunteers they do become mentors, but it's also making sure that I have a fine line as to the expectation. What is it that I'm really needing from them as a mentor? in working with, our participants and what we're doing. If I could say, I want to touch on something real quick in my answer with something you said. First, I really want to say that Stephanie, your model and how you guys do it, I love that model because as a director, as an executive director of an employee of one, still it's like trying to do everything, but having somebody that is skilled and in place that knows how to help me to connect to these different businesses because of time or not knowing who's the best person for the need that I have. Your model is, I love the model, number one. And number two, I also love your model because of there are some things as a director that I may not know and may not understand. And to know that you have a service like that and I can go to you all and get that support and help is very helpful. I wish there was more like that here. And so in saying that is just a lot of my stress points or pain points is getting out more and building more of those volunteers and building more of those relationships. But the ones that I do have, they're very consistent and helpful. And I'm really grateful of that. And so, and those that really stick on, that's when they become the mentors. And a couple of them have not just become a mentor, but now they're like, hey, can I contract? Can I work, be one of their teachers? So it's also another thing that's helping me out in that area as well. So I love it. I love it. But you're doing great work. I love the model. Can I borrow it?
Of course, we are
Can
Well,
I?
we can
sharing.